Good evening. My name is Victoria Bueno, and I'm going to be discussing the Black Death's impact on not only medieval Europe, but how it is currently still being discussed in important matters, namely in the medical field. The Black Death's impact on medieval Europe included the following: population loss and growth, and social and economic structures were affected. Before I get to those points, I would like to talk about what started the plague and why the diagnosis is being seen as controversial. There were really many plagues, but the Black Death is named just for the time period of 1346 to 1353 AD. The plague is caused by the bacterium Yersinia pestis. It is found mainly in feral rodents and spreads with infected fleas. Plague epidemics in human populations can happen when the bacterium invades rat populations that live in close proximity to humans. Once the rats have been largely killed off by the disease, the infected fleas move on to the human hosts. Although this is the general information that has been taught to us, there are people that believe that the plague did not by itself cause the high mortality, and that no one disease alone could have caused it. People have argued about the rate of the bubonic plague being 14% and how it could not possibly have traveled that fast and far to kill as many people as it did. Another discrepancy is that the most common medieval rat, the black rat, was too timid to share space with humans, meaning that they could not have infected them. Although these are great points, those that believe that the plague caused all this had found out that recent biological analysis indicates that Yersinia pestis is capable of mutation that affects its virulence or severity, and it is probable it could have done the damage it caused. Although scientists do not know for certain what disease it is, the aftermath of the plague is nothing short of a tragedy, because it resulted in a loss across Europe, which put the death toll somewhere between 30 to 50% of the entire population. The severity of the plague may have also been due to the nutritional and impoverishment consequences of preceding years of unusually cold and wet weather with crop failures. As far as the people of that time are concerned, their responses varied from seeing this epidemic as God's righteous wrath because of their own sins, resulting in them to turn to religion in hopes to satisfy God, or they blamed the Jews and took matters into their own hands and slaughtered them. The residents of early Russia are a prime example of people who turned to religion, believing that this was the work of a wrathful God. They turned to prayer and other devotional measures, such as in 1352, the people of a city called Pskov, sent for the Archbishop of Novgorod to lead a religious procession at the peak of the pandemic. And unfortunately, the Archbishop paid with his life when he contracted the disease on his way back to his city and died. Another religious act that they had done was build one-day votive churches, and they were called one day because they were built in 24 hours. It was the belief that an object that is the product of continuous, uninterrupted labor cannot be contaminated by evil beings. Although this was a religious response to the plague, more often than not, secular people would initiate the building of these churches, and it may have been due to the psychological release for pent-up fears and frustrations, and challenging people to put energy into something constructive and taking their minds off of the problem for a bit. Italy experienced the extensive use of religion such as this, but the plague enabled the people to embrace both literature and the arts, changing the attitude to a more somber one, and where the pieces were more religion-based. In his book, the Decameron, Boccaccio, gives his first-hand account and tells of the symptoms that the infected would experience and of the reactions the people had, like secluding themselves from anyone either infected or associated with the affected. but also how others would go to inns and drink and live for the now. He explained the symptoms as, and I quote, the emergence of certain tumors in the groin or the armpits, some of which grew as large as a common apple, others as an egg, some more, some less, which the common folk called gavocioli. He goes on to say that the disease does not only affect people, but it also affected other living things, and he gives his experience of what he saw. And I quote, the rags of a poor man who had died of the disease being strewn about the open street, 2 hogs came thither, and after, as is their wont, no little trifling with their snouts, took the rags between their teeth, and tossed them to and fro about their cheps, whereupon, almost immediately, they gave a few turns, and fell down dead, as if by poison, upon the rags which in even hour they had disturbed. Although they were surrounded by death, there were positive outcomes to those who survived the plague, such as better living conditions and new universities being established. Agriculture flourished due to less land that was needed to feed the population after the plague. And due to the possibility of being infected, workers were able to negotiate with the landowners about how much they would be paid, resulting in higher wages, meaning they could afford better meals like meat and beer. With the raise in wages, couples could get married at a younger age, which resulted in the birth rate being as high as it was. For education, the survivors built new colleges and universities to train the new generation for the priesthood and to satisfy donors who wanted to be known as patrons of education, like Holy Roman Emperor Charles IV, who chartered a university in Prague. As far as what is happening now in relevance to discussion of the Black Death in the medical fields, I'm sorry, I'm not a medical major by all means, so I'm going to try my best. CCR 5-832 is talked about being used to maybe aid in the treatment of HIV, but this allele, it's a type of given gene, is virtually absent in African, Asian, Middle Eastern, and American Indian populations. The thinking that is what's happening is maybe that the high frequency of this in Europe arose through strong selection from the bubonic plague. So their hypothesis was that the bubonic plague enabled this gene to be at a higher frequency in the Caucasian populations, but due to looking further into it, the smallpox virus was a more likely candidate due to the high case fatality rates over a period of time instead of a short time, like the Black Death. Although the Black Death was not the cause of something that could potentially be used to cure HIV, it was the first step to get those working on that project to figure out that it was smallpox, and hopefully the information serves them well to reaching their goal. Although the Black Death was a devastating time, good things did come out of it, like universities and the chance for people to live better lives. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful summer.